Good evening and welcome to this Wednesday, April 7th edition of the Island Stat Sports Show. I'm your host, Earl Basin, and joining me is co-host Jason Juggling J. Ford. Jay, we have a very interesting lineup this evening. We're going to be talking with the president of the Bermuda Day Half Marathon Derby, Gina Tucker, very shortly, as well as Nathan Dill, the president of the Bermuda Boxing Federation. They will be soon, or the Olympic channel will soon be releasing a film about Bermuda boxing and also highlighting the two that are trying to qualify for the Olympics coming up. They have qualifiers shortly, to tell you the truth. Whether or not they actually come off in the place that they're coming off is yet to be seen, but it is what it is. How are you tonight?
Man, I am good, man. I'm good. I've actually been waiting for this show because I just need some sports in my life right now, man. Everywhere I turn, there's something being, I mean, if it wasn't for, baseball starting up every weekend and, the Champions League today and a few other international sports, but I just need more local sports. We can get out and about.
Well, you know what? Our locals are still competing. Our locals are still competing.
I just can't get to where they're competing too.
Yeah. That's always going to be a challenge, but sports is not there yet.
No,
it's far from it. I just want to mention to you that in the latest release from the ministry, they received 2018 test results. 89 were positive for COVID-19. 1 is classified as imported, 18 as local transmission with unknown contact, and 70 are under investigation. There's currently 737 active cases, of which 20 people are in hospital with 5 in ICU. Yeah.
Wow, I've been in this sports for a little while.
Well, by those numbers, there shouldn't be anything for a while, but there is.
Yeah, but there is.
Yeah, there is. It is what it is. I mean, we're struggling with numbers and all the like. We're just waiting to see what could happen next.
Yeah, it's. We keep saying the goalposts keep moving, but they literally keep moving. And until we get a hold of this outbreak, I think we're all going to be just seeing what could be possible to actually take place.
Yeah. We'll run out of marking paint, that's for sure, because every time the goalposts move, we got to remark the field.
I think we should do like May 24th, just put a little some tape down and not electrical tape one either, because something's got to come right back up.
Yeah. Well, obviously, when we do talk with Gina, one of the things we're gonna be talking about is what is Plan B and what is Plan C. We know what Plan A is because they've released that already, and that was the 500 participants. But do they have a Plan B and do they have a Plan C? As again, the goalposts keep moving for that event. We all know that the exhibition, which highlights the horse jumping and all of that has actually been postponed. Even the virtual one that they were planning to have has also been postponed, and we're working our way down now to May. And May 29th was the day that has been set aside for the Bermuda Day. We know that the parade has been postponed, canceled, stopped, won't happen. Now we need to find out what the plans are for the race.
Yeah.
And then obviously it's a domino effect after that. What do we turn our attention to after that? I know there's a lot of sports locally, contact and non-contact, that are still struggling to get going because of the number of tan and the fact that there's no mingling outside of your household and all of that. So whether you can train, that's still up in the air, because if they're asking you not to come into contact with people outside your bubble, then how can you have a non-contact training session?
Yeah, but One number that doesn't get highlighted too much is the recoveries, and I'm just looking at it now. There's been 23 recoveries since the last update, which would have been yesterday. So we're in the last few days we've had close to 100 recoveries, which has been great in that sense. No deaths, so that's obviously great news, and just hoping that will continue. Yes, there's going to probably be positive cases because we are testing quite a bit. So we're going to get some positive cases. Obviously, we're just trying to deal with this outbreak, but I think once we get that done, I think we'll have a lot more recoveries in the next week or two. And then we'll see where we go from there. And I believe you're probably, and I'm not a doctor, obviously, I'm far from it. Dr. Gina Tucker, she's a doctor, but not the doctor that we need. But in saying that, I think probably in about 4 weeks' time, and I won't say 4 weeks' time, if, and I say if, we're able to control it at the moment.
Well, I'm expecting a high number over the next 2 days once they get the results back from the testing that was done this evening at Horseshoe Bay. I saw the line at 4:30, which went from the parking lot almost to the top of the hill because you couldn't drive down, you had to walk down. So there was a line coming down Horseshoe Bay Hill. I mean, it's hard to put a number on it, but the line was going well up the hill and around the corner as far as you could see. So I'm expecting, because of the turnout like it was at TCD, the difference between TCD and Horseshoe Bay, where you had to walk in and create a line. TCD had multiple because they had a drive-through as well, so it just made it that much more congested. I know the parking area probably up by Rangers and the lay-by just east of Horseshoe Bay Gate, that would have been loaded with vehicles. Even along the stretch there, that would have been loaded with vehicles as well. So I'm expecting a high number over the next day or two to come back from that. So, and plus, I mean, these people were out in some challenging conditions, a little breezy. So
yes, we've had some breezy conditions in the last few days.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, once again, to protect, and if folks have any, reservations, go get tested. Go get tested. Definitely get tested.
Won't hurt you if you know. If you don't know, if you don't know, you don't know. But if you know, then actually you can get some help.
Yeah. And there's actually protocols and guidelines to follow and come through it. And hopefully, everything looks good. So hopefully, I mean, with the announcement today that the schools will be in remote learning for another 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks, they'll test it. Obviously, there's probably be a lot more testing around that time for when schools go back in. So I expect a lot of testing between now and the next month. A lot of it.
Yeah. Well, we talked about our problems. Let's find out from Anne Marie Burke how she's making out over in Barbados.
Yes.
Yeah. Here we go.
Earl, is always, always, always so good to hear from you. I'm sending my blessings as usual from Barbados to Bermuda. We here in Barbados are rejoicing as some more sports have been given the green light from the government to start back their competitions and training for the athletes. One in particular that we were waiting on for quite a while is track and field. Of course, we need to find out who the athletes will be to qualify for the Tokyo Olympics. So our national championships are coming up later this month. Actually, the first meet for track and field athletes is set for April 24th at the National Stadium or the Usain Bolt Complex. That the venue is yet to be decided. However, we need at this point in time to get our athletes ready for 5 major competitions. And so the Athletics Association of Barbados took the decision to have competition for the athletes who are 15 years and older. They're not using the younger generation of athletes because they just need to control the numbers and control the athletes as well. And therefore, we have a full month scheduled for various competitions and meets, all in the lead up to qualification for 5 major international competitions that we have earmarked to field athletes. Those competitions, of course, we start with the out front runner that everybody's looking at, the Tokyo Olympics. We need to decide if our athletes are able to compete or are able to meet the qualifying standards to compete at the Tokyo Games. So that, of course, is one that we're looking at. The Carifta Games that are rescheduled for later in the year is another one of those competitions that we're looking to see how our athletes have been shaping up, especially with the lockdown, not being able to train as they would like, not being able to be in competition. Nevertheless, and these are local athletes, because I can say the athletes who are based in the US in the collegiate system, they have been able to continue to compete. So we're looking to see how best we can field a team for the Carifta Games once it continues to go off. There's also the Pan American Under 23 Championships, the Pan American Under 20 Championships, and the NACAC Under 18 and Under 23 Championships. So track and field is ready to go. Everybody is looking forward to it, albeit behind closed doors, no spectators at this point in time. Therefore, we're looking to see if it will be live streamed or it will be carried on television. That will be worked out so that we still have the athletes feeling like if they are competing in front of the island as they usually would, because the track and field national championships is a very big thing for us here on the island. So it's just good to know that track and field has restarted. So that is basically the main highlight of my update this week. Also too, the Barbados Tridents football team did pretty well in the first leg of their, or I should say the start of their FIFA World Cup qualification in the CONCACAF qualifiers over there in the Dominican Republic. We lost our first game to Panama, but then we were able to come back and win 1-0 against Anguilla. I think in both cases, the Barbados Tridents football team showed that, they can compete and they are up for the task. So we were pretty pleased with the performance of our local footballers. Of course, they come back home, and then again next month in June, actually, not next month, in June. I missed May. In June, they'll be looking forward to go back to Dominican Republic again as they continue their bid to reach the FIFA World Cup. In surfing is set to start back as well. Our local surfer, Chelsea Tuak, she is about to embark next month as well in May on the International Surfing Association's surfing games over there in El Salvador. It is the last qualification for the Tokyo Olympics. Surfing is ready to make its debut on the big stage, and Chelsea wants to be a part of it. There are only 7 slots left for women to compete at those Olympic Games, and it will be decided at those surf championships, and Chelsea is in with a chance. Chelsea has been in the top 10 in the world for quite a while, and therefore we're looking forward to her doing big things. We really want her to be a part of history. So she's getting up and gearing up and being ready to go over there to El Salvador. Alex Sobers, one of our swimmers, he has already met the qualification in the B standard qualification in swimming, that is, in 2 of his events, the 400-meter freestyle and the 200-meter freestyle. And we were rejoicing because he was able to beat Ryan Lochte, one of the USA's Olympic medalists. Actually finished all the way back in 6th, and Alex was a champion in that 400-meter freestyle event over there at one of the qualification events in Florida, and we were extremely proud of Alex, and there were also national records for him in that instance as well. So at least we're starting to see our Olympic hopefuls shape up. And there was also the Barbados Cricket Association having a little tussle with Cricket West Indies in that they did not attend the recently held Cricket West Indies annual general meeting because they said that Cricket West Indies, CWI, failed to provide financial statements in a timely manner to be reviewed ahead of the AGM, and therefore they pulled out. In that process, also, we had our Vice President of the BCA, Calvin Hope, running with Anand Sanasi of Guyana for the vice president and presidency position. However, the both of them have since pulled out of the competition. The competition pulled out of the elections, and therefore it's looking likely that Cricket West Indies might be retained in the hands of Ricky Skerritt and Dr. Kishore Shallow. We'll see how that plays out. But Calvin Hope of Barbados, he was up for the running and he decided to pull out. But there was a lot of extra controversy surrounding that issue. And in some not so good news, we lost one of our veteran coaches, Mr. Frank Blackman. He has been around for many, many decades. Actually, Frank was credited for coaching our lone Olympic medalist, Obadele Thompson, who has a bronze medal in the men's 100 meters. That was his coach for many years. Actually, he was his coach when he actually won the Olympic medal. He was also my coach at school as well. Yes, I was a track and field athlete. And we really lost a member of our sporting fraternity who has impacted many, many, many lives within the field of track and field, within the sport of track and field. So that's it from me. A little long today because we have a lot going on in Barbados. We are getting back there. That is the most important part. We wanted to be all ready and gearing to go as COVID-19 started to slow down, and our government is more and more relaxing the protocols and relaxing the restrictions, and therefore sport is being back up and running in earnest, slowly but surely. So that's it from me. Again, many blessings from Barbados to Bermuda, and I look forward to hearing you next week.
And I want to thank you very much. And we're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Gina Tucker, the president of the Bermuda Day Half Marathon Committee. We'll be right back.
Nature's Path Organic are a family business, major proponents of the organic method of food production with decades of experience in the field, and have diversified their interests focusing on animal welfare and children's education in that realm. Hence the introduction of Enviro Kids cereal made to the exacting standards we expect and benefiting their cause. Saving animals one breakfast at a time. 1% of sales goes towards protection of animals and their habitats. We're featuring Enviro Kids organic, gluten-free Gorilla Munch cereal. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
And welcome back. Welcome, Madam President. I hope all is well with you.
Good evening. Good evening. All is well. I trust all is well with you.
Yes.
Two of you.
Well, as you know, I mean, well, as your committee has informed us all, registration has been delayed until May 1st for the Bermuda Day Half Marathon. And we know what Plan A is. Plan A is to have up to about 500 participants.
That would be 475. Yeah, 450 individual and 25 teams.
Teams, right? Okay. Do you have a Plan B and Plan C?
Well, it would be nice. Well, a lot hinges on the government. Of course, we will follow any directive the government gives. So if the government says it's not a go, then we pull out and there will be no race. If it is, they might say something like, well, maybe do less people. So Plan B might be to lower that number and have a really small type of event. Plan C, of course, if we look, by May 1, or before May 1, actually, we need to make a decision and determine exactly if it's a go for us, because that would be the absolute last minute we can pull the plug and have things happen in time for the race.
Do you remember the date it was pulled last year? It was end of April as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was around April. Yeah, it was very close to the day. I want to say close to May.
Right.
So very, very much in April, near end of April.
Yeah. Okay. Jay, any question?
Yeah, nice knowing you. I just say Dr. Tucker.
Hello.
But question for you. I mean, obviously with the COVID scenario that the whole world's been, dealing with. How's it been for you guys regarding sponsorship? Because I know that's a big part of what you guys, you need the sponsorship to make this event happen. And obviously some companies financially don't have the money to do it. But how are you guys making out regarding sponsorship for this event?
Yeah, August is our title sponsor, August, and they've remained very supportive. Being a health organization or insurance agency, of course, they are very concerned about the health and safety of the public around this event. And so they're really seeking to ensure that protocols, very, very high standards of protocols are in place. We do hope that they are able to continue to support, but we understand that, it may be difficult. We have smaller sponsors, smaller organizations that are just the little entrepreneurs who are donating and giving. But August is definitely our larger sponsor at this point, and actually Skyport as well. Skyport, the airport, has donated as well to the event. So the sponsorship is there, maybe not as much as we typically would have, but it's still there. But it is, the health situation definitely makes it harder.
In your early discussions, I guess, with the ministry, with government, I guess one of the concerns would have to be spectators. You can't control that. That's one thing you can't control.
Exactly.
And people have it's a heritage thing. That's a family day. That's all of that. Have they expressed concern that if this race was to take place, that will be the challenging part? Not necessarily the runners, because you could start the runners in waves. It's the spectator part.
Yeah, we know that the spectator aspect of this event would be the biggest challenge, and it's one that we would have a hard time controlling. I'm thinking about government and the Minister of Health and the Premier, even over the last weekend, encouraging people to stay in their bubble, even at the park if they're flying their kite. And what I'm picking up is a sense of helping people to appreciate that we can still enjoy events, but we're going to have to do them in a way that is safe for our families and for the community. I would be strongly urging the spectators to remain in their bubble. I mean, we know this race is, filled with spectators along the route. There are some spaces that are larger crowds than others. And then, of course, there's the finish line. We would have no one on the field at the finish line. We would not even have a congregating area there. But I would hope that people along the route would just stay in their bubbles and enjoy the runners in their family bubbles along the route as they come in. But it would be a difficult space. It's very hard to continue with events and life as we know it without having these restrictions. But I think we're going to have to learn how to live with these type of restrictions over the next year or so.
Definitely.
I just hate to think that everything gets lost. I just feel like there has to be some balance between having events and people being safe. And I think we know how to be safe. And when we engage in safe behaviors, we are typically okay. Right now, we're not in a good space because, we had a situation that has caused a surge, or if you will. I just wish it could come down.
You're not alone in that.
But I think every day I'm like, oh no.
Jay?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that along the route, and I was thinking because Christmas time and they had the Christmas parade.
Yes, exactly.
I was watching the families along the route. Have you guys thought about having some volunteers to go along the route with the runners, or during the race, to just monitor some of those areas that a lot of people like to go for the race?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's a long route. It's 13.
Yes.
So everybody was able to spread out. All right, but obviously there's some certain areas where people just say, "This is my family spot."
I know. Well, initially, when we thought it wasn't going to be so bad, we were going to recruit between the regiment and other spaces to really help monitor those spaces in particular, those popular, if I think about coming out of St. George, it's at the flats. That's right. There
Susan
and
and
it's
Flags. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. Those
Yeah.
would be the really, really big spaces. So we were looking at having the regiment or persons come in and really monitor that space. But without having as much money, it's all, it all becomes a challenge with funding and volunteering and so we would really look to recruit persons to help monitor those spaces. Again, very, very difficult.
Mm. What would you say? I know you guys have extended that registration to begin on May 1st, but what date are you and your committee looking at is to say we're going to go ahead or we can't go ahead, even if you haven't heard from the government?
Yeah, we have to make a decision before May 1. Yeah, we will assess the situation that week. The week, I think May 1st is on a Saturday. So we will assess the situation that week leading into May 1 and determine if we actually even open for registration.
Okay.
Yeah, so that puts us at what, 3 weeks from now? That's about three.
Yeah, about 3 weeks from now. Yeah. We've seen the big international marathons and half marathons just to elite runners, in their races. If has that been a consideration where we can get maybe the top 10 males, top 8 females, or 10 females to according to times that you have to go back 2 years now?
Exactly. No, I think that's a brilliant idea, and I recall last year when it was canceled. And then when the day came and we were like, we could have easily had 20 people run down, it would have been awesome to just have a few come down and just imagine back then we were nowhere near in this state that we're in now, right?
Yes.
With the pandemic. But I would really welcome and love the opportunity to have that really elite type of event with perhaps 20, if 20, 25, even if it's 15 male, 15 female, something like that, to really come down. I think that would be exciting. So that definitely would be a consideration if things do not get better. In fact, we had invited some of our top runners as guests. They were invitational because it was a limited event. And remember, we chose that limited number back in December, probably November, December, when things were looking pretty good.
Yes.
So 450 didn't look, it was like, okay, we were actually allowing 100 people together. I think we were going up to 150 or something. And so, it's really flipped on its upside down. It's turned totally in the other direction. And I think, it would be great to have 30 people, a small, very elite type of a race on that day. So we will definitely consider that.
Okay. All right. Any final questions, Jake?
No, I just want to commend you and your committee fast because, obviously it's challenging times, but you mentioned something that I've been saying this for the last year. We have to be creative. We have to use the time to be creative, whether we want to keep tradition, we want to keep these things going, especially the rich traditions. We're going to have to do something a bit different. Maybe a one-off year or 2 off years, and then we get back to what we might call normal 2 years from now. But for now, to keep the tradition going, we might have to be creative. And like you said, whether it's a very limited amount, you thinking about very limited amounts of runners, then that means the race is not going to be as, when I say time out on the course, it's not going to be that much time on the course.
Exactly.
A few things that could come out of that, but once again, just keep all the options. And how much, before you go, how much output or input you're getting from current runners and past runners?
Yeah, they give feedback. They have been very keen to run this year, and they're preparing and getting ready. And I say to them, keep getting ready. Don't stop, because then that would be another issue, right? Suppose we have the race and nobody's been training. Everyone says we're not interested now. So they've been very, very keen to share. There have been races, and we've established protocols that the runners would have to do and engage in, and all of that. We're ready. We've met, the standards, the international standards in running a race in these times. But we're just hanging in. It's just, it's not easy.
Trust
But
me,
the
we
team,
feel
I
for you.
do have to thank my team. They're awesome, right? We've just been hanging in. We're ready. We've been ready for some time now. We were ready last year. So we're just sitting ready. We're just waiting for this gun to go off and people to run.
Yeah. Well,
So,
we want to wish you well. We know you
thank
have a tough job coming up over the next 3 weeks.
Indeed.
In hoping that the numbers come down and things get a little more positive for the country in order to have this event at the end of next month. So we will keep in touch with you to see how things are going.
Awesome.
And obviously we'll invite you back. Whatever decision's going to be, we'll invite you back and we can have a chat on how things will materialize from that. How's that?
Awesome.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Take care.
We'll be right back with more Inside Islandstadt Sports Show with Nathan Dill, the Bermuda Boxing Federation president. We'll be right back.
There was a time when sea vegetables were considered exotic by most, and then along came sushi consisting in raw fish with rice and sea vegetables, notably seaweed and porpora. The folks at Gimme Health Foods know that sea vegetables are fat-free, low in calories, and one of the richest mineral sources in the vegetable kingdom, as they flourish surrounded by the mineral-rich ocean. And that roasted seaweed is a real good eats. Could this be the ideal snack? We're featuring Gimme Health Organic Sea Salt and Avocado and Sesame Seaweed Snacks. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
And welcome back. And I want to thank the president of the Bermuda Day Half Marathon Derby, Dr. Gina Tucker, for bringing us up to speed. Now we're joined by the Bermuda Boxing Federation president, Nathan Dill. Nathan, obviously, a lot of things happening over a short period of time. As time ticks away in anticipation of the qualifications for the Olympics, as well as the Olympic Channel, getting ready to release a documentary on Bermuda boxing. Let's talk about that first. How is that materializing, and when can we expect to see something, anything from that documentary?
So the official release date has not been announced to us yet. We were informed that the documentary on Bermuda boxing did go out yesterday in limited markets, mostly the U.S. market, kind of like a soft launch. So we were aware of that, but because we are aware from the producers that there's going to be final edits in the version that goes out, so they didn't really announce to us that the details of this film being launched, but they did say to us that the film on Bermuda boxing will be launched officially, and you'll see some advertisement in conjunction with the Olympic qualifier that's in May. So within the next 3 weeks, we anticipate a full promo schedule from the producer and from the International Olympic Association, who basically bought the rights to this film. So we're excited, Earl.
Yeah, good to hear. Good to hear. Now on to the next important news or information: the qualifiers for our two boxers trying to meet the standard to go to Tokyo. How are things progressing with that? Because South America, where the qualifiers are, yeah, doesn't look good right now, brother.
So the latest is now we're always operating with a very optimistic point of view. But the latest was the announcement that we hope you bought refundable tickets and don't pay the hotel, which was due today, April 7th, or I'm not sure what day it is. The hotel payment was due today, and they said, hold off on making that payment. And so that was the red flag, or that is the red flag for us, because we're like, okay, we hope we hope what happens next isn't what we expect to happen, but we're being optimistic because the event has been approved. The Argentinian government has exemptions for travel for all of the hundreds of athletes and coaches and officials who's going to come to Argentina, Buenos Aires, for this event. But there is some movement in the Argentinian government as far as COVID restrictions. And again, we're just optimistic that it's still all clear to go because we're taken down. We have basically 3 weeks before we are set to get on a plane, and our athletes are ready. They are hungry. They are ready. Levin Tudor is training here in Bermuda. Adrian Roach is training overseas in Crandall University in Canada, but he should be coming to Bermuda in the next 2 weeks, and then we should be departing. So we're hopeful that it's a go because I'm not sure what the alternative plan would be if COVID shuts down this qualifying event.
Disaster, total disaster. That's what it would be.
It would.
Jay?
Yeah, well, your last statement just messed up my question. So,
it's really just a fingers crossed because I mean, just like Bermuda, and we're experiencing sort of a third wave. You know, we have to be conscious, and we can never forget what's going on in the world right now, the global pandemic. So the important part is athlete safety. That is the most important part. But you know, again, I don't see the Olympics is going to carry on. That Japan has made it clear, and the IOC has made it clear that the Olympics will still go on, whether that's 1 spectator or 1 million, but the Olympics will still go on. And at this rate, it's going to be no spectators for the Olympics. So my hope, my best case scenario is that they give us all a pass and they just give us a bye and say, you know what, guys, we're not going to have a qualifier. We'll see you at the Olympics. That's the best case scenario. How likely that is to happen? But you know, that's the best case scenario. But,
well, let me ask you, because that drives this question before Jay, you answer your question. How many people in each of our guys' division do they have to beat to get through?
Okay, so at this point, I am our biggest supporter. I believe our athletes are prepared. Levin Tudor was planning to go professional in 2 years, so that was 2020. So before the global pandemic hit and before this opportunity hit, Levin was training full time, and I just spoke about him very well because, you know, from his years of being an elite athlete through track and field and through football, he just really transitioned that fitness, transitioned that drive to the sport of boxing. So we know that he is prepared, but the reality is that these guys have to place on the podium because they enter this event with no rankings. There's nothing. So in order to get enough points for them to get the rankings that they need, they have to have a first, second, or third placement on their podium. And they in fact realize that. They know that. It's a one-shot deal. Levin's, again, being a bit older in the game, he knows that this will be his only opportunity. Whereas Adrian has the benefit of youth. And, you know, he's 18 now, and he could go again in 2024 and again in 2028, and then he could decide what to do from there. But, you know, the anticipation, again, is that they do place because they are both prepared. And we know from previous experience with Andre Lamb and Tyler Christopher, we know that Bermuda can stand toe-to-toe with the best of them. The learning experience we had from those previous athletes on our national team was that they learned how to play the game and learn how to score points and learn how to give the judges what they're looking for. The judges want volume of punches, and the judges want action, mobility, moving around and punching. They want constant action. So both of them are prepared for this style of fighting.
Yeah. Jay?
I'm gonna go back to the documentary.
Yes.
My other former life, or I saw my other part of my life is about production and music, and just so I'm very curious. Number one, any local producers involved in this at all?
So let me give you the backstory. And this goes all the way back. When was America's Cup? 2016?
17.
17. So this English guy, young English guy named Tom, he was brought down for the America's Cup in 2017 to do filming. He fell in love with Bermuda, and he happened to hear the story of Clarence Hill. I don't know how he heard this story, but he happened to hear this story, and he said, "Wow, that's really, really interesting. I wonder if boxing. What's the status of boxing in Bermuda?" So he reached out to us, and he basically said, "Hey, are you guys trying to go to the Olympics or anything? Because I heard this great story about this. There's David versus Goliath. This small man from a big man from a small island makes a big impact. I heard this fantastic story. What's the part two?" And of course, this is just 2 years after I became president. I'm like, absolutely. We are going to the Olympics. In fact, we're going to the Olympics in 2020. And he fell in love with the story. And he said to us from the start, he said, "This is a fantastic story. This is such a good human interest story. He said, I can see this being on Netflix or something like that." And, this guy just came out of nowhere. And so he financed this filming on his own, out of his own pocket, for the first, say, year or so. And then the next time he came back was for our November redemption event. That was when Nicky Bascom fought for the title against the Mexican David Chavez. And he came back with a whole big film crew. I mean, I had to sign their customs clearance forms, and they had like $300,000 of film equipment. So this isn't some dude with a camera. This is a full production film company that he's now linked up with called Outsider Media. And Outsider bought into the story as well. So we got a new producer named Simon who came down. And like I said, first it was Tom by himself. And now it was lighting guys and grips and, a full production team. And so that's been going on since 2018. And every couple of months, they would just ring us up and say, "Hey, we're coming back." And so the final scene was in December, just December going. And for them, we set up the boxing ring at National Stadium under the lights because they wanted a really cinematic shot. I mean, I had the privilege of watching this documentary. I had the privilege. They said, "We cannot release it, but we can let you watch it." But they sent me a password. They sent me an NDA. I can't, share it with anybody yet. And I mean, the documentary really did bring me to tears. It was, even though I know the story, because the story is essentially about us, I didn't know how they was gonna put it together, and it's a very, very well put together documentary.
And I'm glad you said that, because a lot of times, we need to get our story out, not just locally, for us, for the next generation to know about our former boxers, but also this generation, but also to the world. And that's one thing that we have learned, especially now with COVID, that a lot of streaming platforms, you're seeing so much content, they're looking for content.
Yes.
So You did mention something about Netflix. Do we know where this will be shown?
So I do know that it's going to premiere on the Olympic Channel. I don't have cable, so I don't know if that's available in the Bermuda market. But I am aware that it is available in the U.S. market. And again, we will be able to get details and share details of streaming options very soon. But again, nothing has been disclosed to me yet because, you know, they're under contract and non-disclosure agreements and whatnot. So I can't say for sure, but I can say that as soon as that information comes out, we will be contacting you, Earl, and sharing that information with everybody.
Man, I can't wait. I can't wait.
I can say it is very, very, I mean, as a Bermudian watching it, I mean, I can tell you this part. Of course, it features our boxers. Of course, it features Clarence Hill, but they've also included a lot of interviews with Wayne Keynes and, you know, just they're in the barber shops. You know, it's like when you're watching it, you're like, I know him. Oh, I know. Like, it's very exciting, you know, even just the guys walking around in the background or the you know, you're like, you know, it's definitely a good timestamp of this story, and it's really going to make the Clarence Hill story and the Bermuda boxing story and the Bermuda story really resound to a much wider audience, because, you know, some of the themes are nobody really knows about Bermuda, and especially in terms of boxing, but nobody really knows about Bermuda, you know, until, you know, somebody like Clarence, somebody like that makes a ripple that's like, oh yeah, Bermuda, like, wow. So it's definitely an incredible story, and I know that when Adrian and Levins go out, they're gonna make that same mark on the world and really bring attention to, you know, Bermuda and what we can produce on this small little island of 65,000. So I'm definitely gonna be excited to share that with you guys and with the country.
Yeah, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to have more with the Bermuda Boxing Federation.
Just in time for spring cleaning comes a fragrant, naturally effective solution. Mrs. Meyer's Clean Day Household Cleaners. Formulated not with the usual harsh chemicals like chlorine, ammonia, and petroleum derivatives, but powerful natural essences with garden-inspired scents. Safer for your children and pets, and aromatherapeutic too. This month we're featuring Mrs. Meyer's Clean Day Laundry Detergent with geranium and lavender, multi-surface cleaners powered by the invigorating aromas of lavender, bluebell, and honeysuckle, and more. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
Nathan, we've been talking a lot about the international side, but the domestic side, you guys had a lot going for yourselves in 2018, 2019. That all came to a screeching halt in 2020. Obviously, now we're still at a screeching halt in 2021. But how are you guys working with the domestic side, coaches and gyms and boxers, to keep that interest there? Because as we've noticed, and as we've been talking about with other groups, if these kids or these young people kind of go away from the sport, it's very difficult to get them back.
It's definitely a huge challenge, Earl, and we face that challenge. I mean, boxing is unique. We need that event in front of us to because, you know, it's a solo sport, it's an individual sport. So, you know, to have the events not happen right now, it eliminates the opportunities, especially for the young people, to showcase their talents. You know, young people are, you know, just inherently, they think about today and tomorrow. They don't think about the day after. You know, I was a 16, 17-year young person as well. You know, that's you know, just like how I say, I wish I would have saved, like, you know, 10% or $1 of what I was making way back in my teens and my 12. I'll be a millionaire now. But, you know, we think about today. So it's been a very challenging time in keeping the interest up in our, especially our youth boxers, and not having our programs being able to run right now, gyms being closed. It's no sparring, it's no training, it's nothing happening right now. It's really a difficult time for our association as well, because I was trying to calculate. I would say about 70% of our operational budget comes from events. And then in addition to that, you know, most of our sponsorship opportunities, as I spoke about last time, it comes attached to events where there's companies just want to be a part of our events. So having no events for us means no revenue. So we've been wholly reliant on the grant money from Youth in Sport, and really, you know, that's the only thing that's kind of keeping us afloat. And you know, we're trying to do our best to mitigate our expenses or whatnot, but you know, we can't plan ahead for anything. You know, we can't make any long-term plans on our strategic goals and whatnot. You know, just little stuff. We plan to refresh our website. We plan to, you know, purchase a storage unit for our boxing ring. We plan, you know, a lot of this stuff comes to a halt. And so just like any other sport and governing body, it right now is probably the most challenging time for those two reasons, really.
Jay?
Two questions there. Have you collaborated with other jurisdictions, especially other countries that are actually starting to get back to boxing, as far as what is their local protocols are to get into boxing or to resume boxing, and compare it with ours? That way we will have a template to show our government or what's needed and to get in. And also you mentioned about the last conversation we had together as far as having some events, what it may look like with or without fans. How have you guys thought of those discussions of probably having no fans, just going straight on streaming like we've seen with other sports, other fighting sports, whether it be MMA, whether it be boxing, we see every week on TV. How do those conversations have been over the last few months since last we talked?
Okay. So to answer the last question first, because that's just fresh on my mind, we have explored options of being able to do events on pay-per-view. We're really just looking at ways to kind of reduce that cost, because, you know, it's fine when we're having a big, you know, $100,000 event at Princess and whatnot. You know, you can budget those things in, but you know, for us, a lot of those costs remain the same as far as a venue, the setup, labor, and then streaming. But fortunately, looking at technology, I mean, you guys do this all the time. There's now platforms that allow me as a prosumer or consumer level to get really broadcast quality streaming without using you know, an external broadcast or whatnot. So we are looking at that. We're definitely looking at that. And this COVID shutdown has really made us really rethink that process. And even though we've been very happy with our partnerships with, you know, broadcasters in the past and pay-per-view in the past, we're very happy with that. When a scenario comes up like this, with COVID, it makes more sense for us to be able to run that and manage that ourselves without having to rely on an external service provider. So myself, I was fortunate enough. My father is like, he's a jack of all trades. He literally had broadcasting equipment, you know, sitting up and doing nothing, and said, hey, you can take it and play around with it. So I am myself, I'm playing around with the streaming and with the broadcast, so that, you know, in the ideal world, I can take the boxing ring, set it up at White Hill Field, and, you know, just get something going, and at least bring an audience in on that. The problem when it comes to pay-per-view is again, our costs remain the same. And the pay-per-view for us, the business side of it, is just we in Bermuda aren't there yet. We aren't there. We like a sit-down event at the Princess Hotel, and we like wearing our coats and our tuxedos, and we like the showmanship of the boxing more than we actually like the boxing. So we have to cautiously approach that so that we don't make a huge financial investment in streaming equipment and platforms and still get no revenue.
Mm. You want to repeat the first part of your question, Jay?
All right, so go to the first part. So obviously, some jurisdictions are boxing right now. Have you collaborated with them as far as their protocols? So we have a template to present, because obviously every time we return back to play, I'm pretty sure you guys have to present something to the government, how you're going to be returning to play. Have you collaborated with other jurisdictions regarding that?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. So the Caribbean region we just ratified a constitution of what's called CABA, Caribbean Association of Boxing. And this was a long defunct organization. And what it is, it's just the English-speaking Caribbean nations. We collaborate and we discuss exactly that. Issues that affect us all. There's strength in numbers, and unity reigns supreme. So I was invited to be a core member of that organization. I'm actually honored at the amount of faith and they're pushing things in my direction. And I always have to say to them, I respectfully decline, because they're saying, you know what, I like Nathan. I really like Nathan. I really like Bermuda. He makes sure that his ideas are heard. He presents good arguments and whatnot. But one of the things that we do within this organization is we discuss exactly what you're saying as far as different countries' protocols. And one of the first things that we were doing, we have a monthly meeting, and one of the things that we do is report the status of our countries. Most countries are not back to boxing, but some countries like Cayman Islands, I can say, is back. St. Lucia, a few others are back. There's really no difference between our protocols and their protocols. But when it comes to boxing, we understand that boxing is a contact sport. It's a close contact sport. We knew from the start that we would be one of the last sports to go in because of the inherent risk. Jiu-jitsu, boxing, martial arts, you have people inches away from each other, breathing heavily with no mask on. So, in our discussions with the Ministry of Health and the Youth and Sport, and I found them to be both very helpful resources, but we just come back, it is what it is. It's no protocols that we can put in place that's going to get us to return sooner than now to some sort of semblance of boxing, just because of the nature of boxing. We really have to wait until the health department and the ministry really determines that it is safe, and we'll just take their advice. It's no protocols that we could put into place in writing that really can supersede the risks that's inherent to our sport.
Yeah. Well, one thing's for sure, Nathan, we feel your pain of having to wait for a decision to be made. It's all out of our control, but we would encourage the two to stay prepared, stay ready, and hopefully we do get that good news that if they can't have the qualifiers, then there's a pathway to get there. So
give us a ticket to Japan. We'll gladly take it.
Well, we'll stay in touch with you, obviously, because decisions have to be made within the next 3 weeks. And obviously, I'm constantly looking at AIBA to see what's going on there as well. They're making strides each and every day. I hope for the betterment of the sport from the insiders, from you guys' standpoint.
We can talk about that the next time, but there was a setback. There was a setback with AIBA and the IOC again.
Yeah.
You know, really kind of blindsided, but yeah, and definitely we want to have our guys to have an opportunity to come here and speak to you guys the next time, as well as they prepare to leave for Argentina, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. So
Yes, indeed. Well, we'll open that extended invitation probably in 2 weeks' time, the week before they have to go.
Sure.
So yeah, we'll get you guys. We'll get you guys back on. Okay.
Thank you very much, Earl. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Bermuda. I appreciate your interest in Bermuda boxing, and looking forward to reporting back nothing but positive news for you next time.
There you go. We're going to take our final commercial break, and when we come back, we'll be wrapping up this edition of the Island Stat Sports Show. We'll be right back.
This month, John Barrett & Son bring us a premium thirst quencher from North Carolina, Le Bleu Ultra Purified Water. Many other bottled waters use reverse osmosis to reach an acceptable level of purity. Le Bleu uses a 5-step purification process which includes fractional vapor compression distillation and ozonation, assuring purity and a unique, appealing flavor. Consumer testimony repeatedly praises the taste of Le Bleu compared to the other brands, and this, along with superior purity, makes Le Bleu a must-try. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
Well, Jay, the hardest thing with our guests this evening has been the fact that they are at the mercy of someone else. All they could do is be prepared for their events, have their athletes prepared for their events. It's so much stuff that is out of their control that all they could do is pray that things actually get better.
Yeah, and keep optimistic. I mean, that's all you can do. But like I said, when we talked to Dr. Tucker and we mentioned about creativity, and I'm just thinking the same thing with the boxing. I mean, we relied on a lot of times of having our local events to garner funds financially. Mm-hmm. But I do remember, my days in Atlanta, especially during the time prior to the Olympics in Atlanta, you used to always have a lot of promoters from all over and collaborate with the local promoters to put on events. So obviously that's going to take money, especially because in the States you could just drive to the next state, or you can, catch a bus. Yeah. It's a bit different. But I mean, just thinking we might have to start looking at, like I said, if Cayman is open up for boxing, we might just have to start taking a few fighters down there and working with a promoter down there to put them on a bill, just because at the end of the boys have to fight.
Yeah.
There's another sport that you could do when well, I can't even say that because I say De La Hoya is trying to come out of retirement, so go figure.
Right.
But for the most part, there's a lifespan in this sport, and you don't want these older boxers to be missing out on what they might think is the best years or the golden years. So
yeah,
it's going to be interesting how we go forward. Hopefully within the next 3 weeks, we can bring our local numbers down as far as the COVID cases, and we can get back on with sports. Once again, boxing will probably be one of the last ones to be introduced. But for our case right now, our boys won't be fighting here. They'll be fighting overseas. So it's just a matter of hopefully they can, we get these numbers down, and none of where they're going, they get their numbers down, and we can have these fights. So
definitely.
And it's but what good thing is the documentary. I can't wait to see the documentary.
Yeah, definitely.
It's gonna be something if they was able to even get their website up. He was mentioned about doing a new website. That would probably be a good way to start, because they might be able to stream the documentary through their website, And guess what?
I think the Olympics is paid for it, so it will stay with the
Oh,
Olympics.
yes, the Olympics.
Yeah, so it will stay with them. So yeah,
We'll stay with that.
but we always able to watch it because it's there. They're linking a YouTube as well, so it should be really, really good. I've had a chat with the gentleman as well. So yeah.
Hey, you seen it? Oh, yeah, they took a fight. Man, no wonder you look beat up today, man. No, see, it explains everything.
Listen. The only thing that I have is my integrity, okay? So when you're told to keep quiet, you keep quiet. Okay? All right. Yeah. Well, Jay, look. See you later, man.
Peace.
Have a good evening.